I tell people the greatest gift you can give your kids is a holistic, healthy you. Greatest gift that you can bless your children with is that they, in holistic and healthy you, is mind, body, and spirit. It is your truth. You know, you don't have to tell them your whole ugly, but they need to know who you are and who you were. Because a lot of times they're encountering that person in your behavior patterns.
Empower You podcast is devoted to bringing real world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you. Welcome to Empower You podcast. My name is Kidboy Cooper, and I am so glad that you are here. Today, we're talking about breaking cycles. Now, we all understand and have heard that term, but today we're really going to dig into it just a little bit and really evaluate what that means and how we apply that into our lives. And we have a tremendous guest who is taking her time to talk to us about this topic. Today, we have the executive director of Fort Wayne Girls Rock and Adams Township Trustee, Denita Washington, with us. Denita, how are you doing?
I'm actually well. I had been a little under the weather. I got my second vaccine on Thursday, was doing good. And then Friday, a train wreck hit with it. So
Oh, Lord.
I had a little side effect. But I'm good. It's Sunday and I have risen. So I'm excited.
That's right. Hey.
Yeah. So I'm well.
That's
I'm
awesome.
well.
Thank you so much for being here. I know, it is a Sunday and some folks do not work on Sundays. And I am always working almost every single day. But I understand that that's a special day, a more special day for other people. And I appreciate you spending it with us. Before we get into our conversation about breaking cycles, I just wanted to maybe get to know you a little bit and talk about maybe your backstory. Tell me something about you that maybe we don't know.
Oh, wow. Well, a lot of people don't know I have brothers and sisters. So I do have 4 living siblings. One was murdered in 2004 here in the city, unsolved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
And so sometimes, my passion and work with youth comes from which I come. Some pain, some trauma, some pressure. But come from a great family. I have 2 sons, adult sons, 32 and 30, and 2 amazing granddaughters that are the loves of my life. I said, I don't know what God was thinking when he made grandchildren. That's just a whole nother level of agape love.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super excited. That's kind of my backdrop and and who I come, a mother who I am adored by and loved, and a father who is deceased, but was loved, So that's kind of my story,
That's amazing.
History of who I am as far as my family makeup.
And so are you originally from Fort Wayne?
Absolutely. I'm from Fort Wayne, born and raised. I travel the world, but I live here. I tell people that. That's kind of my slogan. I like to travel, but my home base has always been and probably will always be Fort Wayne.
Wow. I travel the world, but I live here. That's a great way to put that.
Well, because everybody wants to make Fort Wayne and Indiana such a horrible place to live. But I don't deem it that way. I think, where you live is, it's important to me and it's my roots. But it gives me the gift of being able to go other places and see it, but still come back home.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I like Fort Wayne. It's all right.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like I'm not from Fort Wayne originally. I'm from Gary, Indiana. So
Mhm.
Fort Wayne is a very different environment for me. Even having been here
Absolutely.
for so long, I still am distinctly aware that I am not from
You're
here.
from here.
There are so many isms that y'all have that I'm like, I don't know what y'all are talking
Mhm.
about. But
Well, and
it's
like I said, a lot of times Fort Wayne is not always an adored place,
mhm.
but it's a good place to raise kids and family. And if you know thyself,
Mm.
you navigate.
If you
So,
know thyself, you can navigate.
mhm,
That's a
mhm.
great way. You putting down 2 bars already. Already.
Look,
So
just trust.
so tell us about Fort Wayne Girls Rock and
Okay.
Adams Township, the Adams Township trustee position. I
Okay.
feel like, well, are those two entirely different services and roles that you play? And if so, how do you do both of those?
They are, and then I've added a role because I'm now the new director of programs at Fort Wayne Housing Authority.
Oh, wow.
So, so I can talk about all of them. Girls Rock is something that I created 11 years ago,
Okay.
and it's a not-for-profit organization to empower girls from the inside out to learn to support positive growth and change in their community. And so that was something that was birthed from probably my childhood successes and issues. Excuse me. And, I tell people all the time, it kind of started when I was Metro Youth Sports. If you've ever known anything about Metro
Mm-hmm.
Youth, I was a cheerleader and walking home from cheerleading and got chosen to be the captain. And on the way home, the girls made it clear, oh, you the captain? Well, this what you better do. This what you better not do. So there was some challenges with being chosen to leadership.
Mm.
And from that moment on, I kind of started fearing leadership. I didn't like it because I always felt like there was loss with it. You know, that when you become a leader, other people, the way they see you, deem you, and treat you wasn't something I liked. And so when I would get chosen for stuff, I would just say, I don't want to be the child, I don't want to be the captain. I don't want to be the leader. Let me just blend in. And so I did that a lot through middle school and early high school. And so when I think about Girls Rock, that's where it started because I wanted girls to not feel that way just because they were chosen, because everybody's going to be chosen for something. And I didn't want girls to shy away and not embrace leadership as I had done. And so it wasn't until I encountered probably about high school the gift, understanding my gift, that there was a gift in me of leadership that was going to be my call, and that I had to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, not being liked all the time, and somewhat by yourself.
Mm.
Because with leadership comes, you do stand, it's given this difference. And so I wasn't comfortable with that for a lot of years. And even now, I still struggle with it. And so that's kind of Girls Rock in a nutshell. That's how it was birthed. And we've been going strong for 11 years, quietly for about 5 or 6. And then this kind of explosion happened where it became very common for people to start embracing where we are. And so then I was elected into Adams Township 3 years ago, first African American and first female in that position in history. And so again, embracing another leadership role. And it's funny because that was birthed from another experience. I had lost my job and needed to possibly go visit some spaces to get help. And had been helping people in my job in the role at the school system, but never had to encounter it myself. And through that experience, it was like, this is how they treat people. Like they're paid and designed to serve who need. And everybody who needs isn't lazy or doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mentality when you go sometimes. And so I thought, wait, you making a paycheck to feed your family because of me, and you're gonna mishandle me.
Oof.
Okay. So that just stirred my spirit. And so I started looking at the township position in government. and said, met with Dr. Quentin Dixie and Sharon Tucker, and they said, you would be perfect. You have the heart, blah, 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 blah. And so I applied to run, not knowing a thing about politics. I just knew I had passion about the position.
Right.
And so I figured you can learn the political pieces. And that's exactly what I did. I just learned it as I went. Now, I don't advise that for everybody. If I had to do it again, I would probably definitely learn the position and investigate it more. But leading while learning hasn't been bad because I've had some great people around me and created a great team out there. So I've been 3 years strong, very unliked initially. And so that old childhood feeling started birthing up again because at this table, I was an only.
Yeah.
Board of all Republican white men, and my incumbent had gotten voted on to my board because one of my board members had passed away. And so it's been an interesting journey, to say the least, but one that I don't feel like I'm losing, that I'm winning, because people and lives are being changed. So that's Township.
Wow.
And then the third role is I've been at the job probably 7 weeks now, 6 or 7 weeks, as Director of Programs of Fort Wayne Housing Authority. Because Adams Township is a part-time position, I can do full-time work at the Housing Authority. And I waited about 2 or 3 years and did any other work outside of sub-teaching because outside of Township, because I really wanted to get Township to a good place where it can run its own wheelhouse. It does need to be probably it could be a full-time position, but because that is what they have chosen it to be, then God helped me design people to work and be on my team that could help me do that. And it's been an awesome, awesome experience. We've gone from they didn't do anything before I came except pay people's bills and deny or whatever. And now we have food drives. We have a Zoom event that we do monthly, empowering people, partnerships with all kind of community outreach. And so it's been a great experience. And so now Director of Programs at Fort Wayne Housing Authority, I am back where I grew up. Grew up in Housing Authority at McCormick Apartments, and now there to build programs to empower, encourage, and equip families for their next level of living. And so that's kind of
wow. That is all so very impressive, and it all says leadership, and it all says responsibility, and I think those are heavy callings. And I know one of the things you always say is lead with love. And I think sometimes in the midst of leadership, it can be hard to manufacture love sometimes. Because when you are faced with the adversity that leadership comes with, you can become very hard. And it doesn't seem like you're very hard at all, which I think is very interesting.
Lots of prayer, lots of reminders of why you're there. Like, I think my past experience and exposure with the title, and I say title because I never felt poor, but I guess in legal terms, if you looked on paper, that's what I was supposed to be. So, for me, I just think that people do not realize that experience exposure to greatness at any level or difference or, positivity, how it can transition and change. And so I think for me, God knew every experience was going to formulate for the journey. It was going to form something for the next level of my journey. And that's what people are witnessing. I tell them they look at the success, but it's wrapped up in stress and sacrifice a lot of times.
Yes.
But the stress and the sacrifice to get there is what they've missed on the journey. And so when you say I don't appear hard, good, because that's really his plan, that he kind of moves and operates within me. So that's what you're witnessing when you don't see the brokenness the batter, the struggle, the sacrifice. It's him. He's covered it well.
That's
He's done well.
amazing. That is amazing. I am definitely learning that whole process of standing out more and of walking in what you believe you're designed to do more, and the immense sacrifice it comes with. You would think people would love you for your gifts. And some people do, but it's never the ones that you think. And
sometimes it's never the ones that we desire it to be.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Because we want to place and put people in spaces. And sometimes it's just not our design.
Yeah.
And he said, not that one. Nope. And so I think for me, that's what I've had to learn, that, sometimes what I want and how I want to put it together has not been what he wanted.
Yeah.
You have to respect his plan.
I definitely am feeling that here lately. One of the other things that I've been thinking about, is that in right in line with our conversation, it costs something to break cycles. It really, really does. Somebody has to go first. And it really, really is. It's something else. I'm learning, right? Like I have not been, I don't feel like I have been, I definitely have not been in leadership as long as you have. And so I learn and I watch the resilience of other people. When I created the podcast, you were on my list of people I wanted to be in the first season. And, it didn't work out for that season. But even still, like, there were certain people I was like, I need your perspective. I need, the wisdom and the leadership that you have, the knowledge that you've experienced, that you have gathered, throughout what you're doing. Because when I think of people who are breaking cycles, who are moving the needle, who are, the forces of change in the environment that I'm in, Fort Wayne, Indiana, I think of you. I think of a select others who I feel like are truly just a force to be reckoned with. But I also know that takes so much strength. And, the topic that we're discussing today of breaking cycles is not something you do, or is not something that is easily done, And so I think that's why I'm just excited to have you here and to talk about it a little bit. So what is the first thing that you think of, when it comes to breaking cycles?
Probably the reason why most can't, comes to mind is that, I have this quote that says the reason why a lot of people won't become who God wants them to be is because they're too attached to who they always have been. Too many of us, complacency, comfort, the unknown of when you break the cycle, then what? Because when you're so used to the common, that is, that's easy to navigate. Even, the most dysfunctional spaces, I've seen kids in relationships, the most dysfunctional. But if you know dysfunction, you know how to navigate that. To go to something new and different, sometimes is more fearful, it's more scared, it's scary. And so for me, I think of that when I encounter people who have that generational curse that they just can't see. You say a certain family name and you're like, oh, that's the so-and-sos. Oh, wow, because they got this and that. Like, that's just a part of them, girl. That's how they are. They drinkers, or, they sleep with a lot of women, or whatever it is. What I mean? Their family will be noted for that.
Yeah.
And so part of what I told my sons, young, is your name means something.
That's right.
Washington. And your name means something. And I didn't care at that time. It didn't matter that I wasn't Girls Rock CEO and I wasn't, director of program. The title doesn't mean anything. Meaning something's meant I have put something in you.
Yeah.
And you bear my name. And so how you behave, how you carry yourself, you can't act like everybody else. You're different. And because I think parents don't always speak that kind of energy because they only base it off of when they arrive that
Yeah.
they're something, and so then their kids end up taking on hashtags of Beyonce and, LeBron James, which is all well, I'm not hating on them, but the Washington hashtag is who they will permanently be.
That's right.
And so how I've walked through life then prepares and propels them. And so it was important for me with my sons that they knew that. And so they started understanding when they would veer off a little bit, that would be my conversation. What does your name mean? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
We have a hashtag triangle offense, and I meant that because this offense can't be beat. Remember when the Bulls triangle off, it couldn't be beat. And it had some dysfunction. It had a Dennis Rodman, it had where they didn't always get along, had some egos, Michael Jordan initially. But when it came down to the championship game and winning in life, they all pulled it together.
That's right.
For one kind of call. And that's why that we are the triangle offense, the Washington family, because I wanted them to understand we cannot be beat when we build and stay together as a unit like that. And so I think families and people need to do that. They have to be aware and open up to their issues as well. We weren't perfect. Like I said, we've had the Dennis Rodman moments in our family.
Right.
We've had a Michael Jordan moment of ego and not understanding that even though you might be the best at this moment, I guarantee you can't win by yourself. That Scottie Pippen relationship that everybody neglected and didn't really see and didn't want to pay him what he was worth. He stuck it out though for the greater good, and so somebody a lot of times in family is sacrificing. Are you the sacrifice one in the family? So all of those things, I think for me, when I look at the generational curses, why are you laughing?
Because that hit different. You said, are you the sacrifice in the family?
Oh yeah.
Really, that touched me because sometimes
there's family members that, I have a friend and she literally, she is a caretaker for an adult family member. She does the financials for another part of her family. One is homebound. She got the good, but that's her sacrifice. And she doesn't even deem it as work. She understands that in order for her legacy to carry and greatness to happen and for everybody to still feel valued, loved, that's a part of her and her husband's role. And they do it with such grace and such, peace that even when people try to speak against it, they understand for their last name and how they carry their family through, it is her role. And a lot of us don't understand that.
Yeah. Man, that is a haunting word for me. Just because I feel like, that is always the path, is sacrifice. That is always the path. And it's interesting that you say that, because, you said it doesn't feel like work and that, you do it with grace. And I think that is what I endeavor to do is to just stay on my path and walk it with grace and with dignity and to break the cycles that I've seen in my family or in my community, and do so in such a way that doesn't involve being egotistical or toxic. Because there's, my next question was going to be about, whether we think it's you can break cycles gradually, or do you need to be really intentional. But, I think you answered that, it's awareness. It is absolutely intentionality that breaks cycles. You don't just happen to do it. And that's why people don't do it.
And it's a journey. I think that, sometimes some cycles of addiction and things like that, you got to be aggressive because those are things that can take you out, So when you see certain things, I think you have to, like you said, be intentional, laser in on it. But I think sometimes the ones are sometimes that are less, that are maybe more silent. It takes time. it takes time to overcome violation, especially when it was a childhood violation, because those are things sometimes that, are embarrassing. You don't always want to uncover it. Then you got to engage parents. You got to make people aware who maybe set by the wayside and didn't know, knew. There's all kinds of levels to the generational curse. I tell people all the time, for me, if I had to be authentically honest, obesity is one for me. And a lot of people just usually, because if I always tell a family member who was addicted to drugs, she's very apologetic. And, I'll say to her, hey, we all got something. I said, we don't say nothing. We all sit around the table and sometimes overeat, and nobody gets offended by the overeater. But that's a slow killing. That's a slow death, And I said, but if you showed up with a crack pipe, we'd have a heart attack.
Exactly.
Everybody called and mortified and want to put you out. And I said, so, for me, I'm learning to see that we are all battling something. Yeah. And if we could meet each other where we are, I think that people who had such addictions and such issues would be able to defeat them, better and with love and with embracing. But because we shun certain generational curses and issues, we can't beat them. Because the reality is we need others. We need people. Yes, we need God. People like say, just go to the Lord. He does say, come to him, pray. And he does help with those things. But I think, like you said, we're all here in purpose for reasons. We're interconnected. And so we have the power to help influence others as well. And we just don't always do it and use it in the manner that we should. So for me, with generational curses, I've learned to really be open and meeting people where they are, because so many times we don't know others' story. When we only can see success and, maybe money and glam. And I've seen some people on Facebook, Kibwe, that I'm like, they broken. Like they husbands making good money. They able to move and shift and pivot. But I can discern it when it is not an authentic happiness or joy, because that's really what it's not. Happiness is usually what it is, because that's contingent on circumstance. Joy is something that even with loss, you still have a sense of who you are, what God is to you, and those kind of things. And so, and because I think I had a mother who shows joy, then I can tell the difference from a young age.
Yeah.
And so I think that, a lot of times for us, that experience and exposure to healthy parents, I tell people the greatest gift you can give your kids is a holistic, healthy you.
Yeah.
Greatest gift that you can bless your children with is that they, in holistic and healthy you, is mind, body, and spirit. It is your truth. You don't have to tell them your whole ugly, but they need to know who you are and who you were.
Right.
Because a lot of times they're encountering that person in your behavior patterns, in your interactions. And sometimes it's a loss. You're like, wait a minute, what is wrong with mama? Why is she a cusser? Why is she a yeller? Why does she have a combative spirit in moments? But if they don't know that there was some trauma as a child, if they don't know as before daddy got off alcohol, he was abusive or whatever the issue, then they don't know the total you. And so they encounter these spirits and they don't understand why, because they want to go to a party and that it might appear dangerous to you, you cussing and going crazy, is because that's where you got off track one night. And went on a path that they don't know about. But you look polished and perfect now, there was some things that happened that broke you. And so that rage that's coming up is not an anger really at them. It's a fear of what that arena might do to them.
Today is the day, and now is the time. If you have a good idea, good intentions, and are looking for a way to get audience and to get your great message out to the world, I encourage you to start your very own podcast. You would be surprised the amount of folks who are waiting to hear your content. My name is Kibwe Cooper, and I have been an audio engineer for the past 7 years, and I am offering one-on-one coaching to help you get through the beginning stages of creating your very own podcast. Please reach out to me and let me know how I can help you. My email address is empoweryoupodcast@gmail.com. We offer one-on-one coaching, a live masterclass, and even a 10-module course that will take you through the entire process of creating, producing, and distributing your podcast to your very own listeners. This is a great avenue to connect with your audience and to connect with people who are in need of your voice. Again, reach out to me at empoweryoupodcast@gmail.com and let's get your podcast started today. Yeah, you haven't established closure of that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you're saying this, because I had, my mom passed away in 2016, and
Okay, I didn't know that.
it was ever since then, obviously my life has changed, but then also my relationship with my dad has changed too. Now, mind you, I've always had a good relationship with my parents, with my family. We're really tight knit. I have 5 sisters and another brother. And in the past year or so, I have really developed a different kind of relationship with my dad, because some of the things we talk about, we just never talked about when I was coming up, when I don't understand. I mean, I guess it's hard to talk about. I mean, I don't have any children, so I could only assume there are layers to why certain conversations weren't had, and I respect that. As an adult, it adds a lot of context that I wish I did have when I was younger, though, because there were questions that I didn't even know to ask. There were perspectives and there was insight in the things that he and my mom were going through, in terms of, either finances or just life situations, or, that really impacted the way that we grew up. And I'll just speak for myself. I didn't have any context for that. So I was processing things a certain way. And now in retrospect, I'm like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense why you would do that. I actually, completely misunderstood the situation because, nobody was transparent about what's happening. I don't know how you do that, right? I think children, you have to be very careful with the way that you deliver information to them based off of the kind of child that they are and their maturity and things like that. But, again, as an adult, I'm just like, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And it makes me prouder of my father. It makes me prouder of myself, of my siblings, because now with that proper context, I'm like, oh, so we did that. I didn't even know that's what we were doing. You know what I mean? And he was just, that's kind of his testimony. He's just like, because there's different things that, I'll go through and we'll talk about it, and he'll just start sharing more and more of his story. And it is completely changes the perspective that I see on myself and on just situations in general, which gives me momentum to continue to break cycles, which gives me momentum to continue to push forward, because now with the proper context, I'm like, okay, so this is doable. There's levels to breaking cycles. Sometimes just surviving a situation is more than anyone else has done.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Just getting your whole family out whole is a feat in of itself, depending on, where you came up. And, in Gary, Indiana, that was a feat, because a lot of families in Gary, Indiana are not whole. A lot of families in Fort Wayne, I'm sure you see, are not whole. They may all live in the same house, but they are not whole.
And we have a tendency to equate generational curse with poverty. Generational curse hits the rich, the poor, and the middle class. But we equate it a lot of times to a poverty perspective. And so that's a very misconception, and so it's not equated. I think a lot of times we equate it to money and, royalty.
Yeah.
But it is beyond that. There is some some mental pieces, and just they have almost just handicapped our families in a way.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that a lot of times we have a tendency to think, "Ooh, that's they curse," and poor and poverty can be that. That's not that it can't be that, but it's not the only.
Yeah.
There's some other areas of life where I've seen some generational curses on families and people, and because they have the means to finances,
Mm.
it's diluted.
Mm.
A lot of times their kids don't even get a chance to unveil that in themselves until they're well in their adult years. That, man, this was definitely an issue for my family, and we didn't deal with it.
Yeah. Right.
So
What would you say would be the most prevalent concern or that you encounter in the roles that you play when it comes to, like, because I'm sure you try to help these young ladies break cycles, break generational curses, whether it be mentally or emotionally, and it sounds like you're doing that systemically in your other roles that you play with Township and Fort Wayne Housing
yeah.
Authority. So what would be the most prevalent thing that you are just really trying to constantly beat when it comes to the cycles that people are in?
Fear of next level living. That's very common. Like, people are so used to. I'll give you an example. I'll never forget the time when I was younger, young parent, and uh, I was getting food stamps. And my ex-husband at the time, just dating, that wasn't his life. He grew up out north, he worked, their family. And so, but we had 2 kids, and we were working, but living separate. And he wanted to get married. And where I grew up in McCormick, it was very common. People got food stamps. And so to get married means you got to let go of all the systems.
Mm.
You can't have the Medicaid, can't have the food stamps. Like, you got to let them systems go. And so he was working at, I think it was Zoner or Fort Wayne Foundry. Great money. Like, we could easily live and go get groceries. But my mind was like, wait a minute. If we get married, then I gotta, he's like, yeah, you're gonna be on my insurance, great insurance. You don't have to worry. But for me, I was so used to the system that I was willing to sacrifice not being married. You see what I'm saying?
That's
whole
deep.
relationship. But that's that poverty mindset. That's that stronghold that a lot of times keep people in systems, because that's all they know. That was the common. And so that was familiar for me. And so I had to really not, and even my mom had said, girl, let go of the system. Those are systems that you use as train stops, but you don't stay on that train. But if you, again, you're around people, you start this, that becomes a mentality that you take on. And so thank God for me meeting someone who had another level of living and had a plan for his family.
Yeah.
And then had a label and title for his children. Now some men, they want that because it gives them an extra cushion. He didn't want the cushion. He said, I want you to go into the store and be able to write a check. And I remember, if people listening, if they remember Cub Foods out north years ago, that was the first time that I wrote a check for $200 for groceries. And I remember back, like, almost having a heart attack. Like, oh God, I'm about to spend $200 on groceries, And so for me, that was a generational thing that a curse that I wanted to break. It was like, no, I want to be able to go in the store and not even be looked at or shamed, or, if I choose to buy a birthday cake for $50, I'm okay. Like, this is what I can do. So I say all of that to say, those are the kind of things that are kind of silent that people endure. That transition and change, even though it was for a greater living for me and my children, I initially couldn't see that because I was comfortable with the systems. And that's why we have to be careful of these systems, because some of them are designed. They've been designed to break the family down.
Absolutely.
keep
To
us in separate spaces and
incentivize.
parts. But see, if you're
Yeah.
not conscious, then you don't understand that. And my ex-husband, now at the time though, he understood it. And he was like, "Ain't nobody gonna tell me how I can live and how we gotta live." No, 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 no. I'm done with this. It was cool. We was young, but we're moving on, and greatness is up on us. And so I want us to live according. I want my sons to go in the store, and when they pick up something and they want it, they can get it, and people not looking like, "Why you buying him that with a food stamp card?" So that's what I mean with that. That it changed. My mom, even when we were younger, a lot of parents, they used to have food stamp books. If you remember, I don't know if you're coming with that, but she would never give us food stamps. So when I was young, initially I never knew I was on them because we were never handed those. She went to the store, she shopped and all of that. So if the popsicle truck came, we have popsicles just like off the truck in the freezer. Whereas my friends, they all would run to the store with that kind of stuff. And I think handing kids, that creates a mindset of comfortability and all of that. No judgment. When you have to have a season of that, that's fine. But what you don't want is that it becomes a generational cycle. And it did for a lot of families when I remember back. And even now going back to spaces and being as the township, you start seeing names that come across the thread.
Oh, wow.
And you think them from childhood and their mother. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of people. And so you want to change that. That was something that I really wanted to stop with me. And so that's kind of how I see it.
Wow. You see the same thing in the young ladies that you work with? Just fear?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Fighters don't know how to sit and have common conversation. They only know when they disagree to do this. And a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, their mama was a fighter. Her last name so, oh yeah, she was a fighter in school." And so, but fear of being able to sit down and disagree and work it out, because that you only know what you knew to do. And so fear for me is one that I think when people understand how to wrestle with their fear factors, greatness can be birthed. Greatness it can come alive in young people when fear can be suppressed and pressed down, because usually fear is what stops us from doing most things.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
It's a podcast. What was it? Before that, you could have probably been and started this 2, 3, 5 years ago.
Yep.
But too worried about the naysayers, you fearful of finances. Oh, how am I buy a microphone that costs $250? Well, I spend that on shoes. What's my importance? You see what I'm saying? Like all of things is what we will set in the way of us transitioning and moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, you said when people learn to wrestle with their fear factors, greatness can be born. That is a quote right there. I'm
Write it down because I swear I won't remember it.
Yes. When people learn to wrestle with their fear factors, wrestle.
Yeah.
That is such a that imagery there, because
we talk about faith. We teach our kids about faith. We talk about it, but do we walk it? See, faith is action to me. And a lot of times fear is, it wins a lot of times because, again, we're not walking faith. We go to church, we play all the roles of faith. But when it comes to putting it to action, fear a lot of times wins with us. That's the action that our kids end up seeing.
Yeah.
Saying the woe is me, the continual talks about change that we want. And then they end up taking on those same behavior patterns in their own life. And so I remember one time Dr. Sharon Banks told me, "Don't ever tell your kids you can't do math. Quit telling them that." Because they used to say, "I'm horrible at math, I can't do it." She said, "Don't speak that into your sons, because then they will take on that same behavior." And I did change that. I started shifting that. I told somebody my one generational curse that I struggled with was obesity. A lot of my family were overweight. We eat, we fellowship with food, food, everything.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Yeah. That's a community thing. Like that is
it is
that, because if you even think back farther, that was how we took care of each other. people didn't have resources to do things, but I could cook you a meal. I could cook you and your family something. I could bring something nice
Mhm.
over that makes everybody feel good, with the
That's
resources
it.
that you have, so I completely relate to that. That's just that's something that, my family struggles with too.
And so for me, though, the one thing that I wanted to offer my sons, even though I still even today struggle with it, is a fit and more healthy lifestyle. And so I never forget, I never saw my mom go to the gym or my dad, nobody in my family. That wasn't something that I got to witness. And so I got my kids' Y memberships young. And I go to the gym, they went. And is it still a battle for me? Absolutely. But for them, I love the fact that I can see where the generational is changing. They work out, they go to the gym,
Yeah.
they're mindful a lot of times. If I cook, they're like, Mom, well, this time we only want this, we don't need all of that, And so we're having conversations. Unlike when I was younger, it was nothing for Christmas to have 6 or 7 different meats, 10 or 15 different sides. And so, now we're having dialogue about how, Mom, you ain't got to even do all that. We know you tired. We ain't never say that to our mama. We like,
Right.
Mama, are you making dressing? Are you making? We want to make sure every dish is on the table. And so
Yeah.
you know that,
And it was
that's
there
the
too.
patient with changing generational cycles. We think it's got to be instant,
Yeah.
whereas you want to see a change over the generations.
Yeah.
And I can say that in my family, that even with finances and things like that, I can see it changing over the generations.
Yeah. Wow. That is so, I think I still completely resonate with that fear of upgrading your standard of living, fear that, if what I'm doing makes the money I want, will I have any friends? Maybe I shouldn't work this hard. Maybe I shouldn't, if I really turn up the way I feel like, I feel led to, if I get as big as I want to be, will anybody love me? Will I be lovable? Because there's all these fears of not that aren't necessarily associated with the thing, but you worry if you're not going to be accepted anymore, if you're not going to have communion with other people who you care about, if the relationships you build are going to have to crumble in order to be better, because we have all these ideas about what breaking cycles means, right? It's like, oh well, anybody who's rich is it's a swindler, or they take advantage of people. That's not true. Well, all millionaires, they were born into wealth. That's also not true.
Not true.
Like there's so many things that we tell ourselves to combat that fear. So when you say fear is the biggest cycle you need to break, that is so real. That is
Yeah. And it's across all cultures, all generations, all social economics. But we dismiss fear. I always tell somebody, I think it was Andre Patterson, I don't know if you know him, director over at McMillan Park. But one time he came and spoke to a group of kids after the Trayvon Martin situation. And he said to the kids, he said, what do you think was the issue? Why did Trayvon Martin, why did it happen? And, that racism, they were naming all this stuff and, da, 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 da. He said, no, fear. He said, the man who saw Trayvon Martin with the hoodie, fear. That's what initiated the fear of what the hoodie spoke to him.
Mm-hmm.
When Trayvon Martin saw him, and it was fear for him.
Yep.
When you think about these scenarios, it's usually, embraced by fear of the unknown. If you're not common with a certain group of people based on their race, only what you witnessed on TV, then you see them and clutch your purse. You see them, there's, I have to admit, there's sometimes there could be a white person that a person could see and say, what, oh, wait a minute, he looked like a Jeffrey Dahmer. Like we have all of these things that places fear. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Our space and how we interact, how we move, and those kind of things. And so I always tell people, I fight fear. I fight it, because I want to have an authentic encounter with people. And I want them to have that same experience with me. And so in fighting that generational curse, even when I went to New Haven as a township trustee, you know what I mean? People called me fearful of me being out in New Haven, literally.
Mm.
Now, baby, you be careful. Don't you be working late, because them folks out there, you got to be careful out there. I'm like, I worked out there at the high school and nobody said this to me. But now that I'm at the trustee office in a leadership role where I can be seen and governmental, now I need to be fearful. I just think sometimes, like you said, these myths will stop us from doing the work or stop us from breaking the chain. And I thought, no, I'm going to walk bold in this role. I'm going to walk bold in this. No, I need to be at that table. That is my assignment right now.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes if we take on a different perspective with breaking generational curses and cycles, then fear will go sit down somewhere, and change.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to teach our kids. They need to witness it, not just hear us speak it.
Yeah. And it's that wrestling factor. It's the active activity of constantly being engaged in overcoming your fear, overcoming that obstacle, and that looks at some days, I know for myself, some days I feel like I'm doing amazing, and then other days you feel like, man, I don't feel like I can catch up, and you gotta just take the good with the bad, the crookeds with the straights, so to speak.
Well, and I think you have to have people around you so that when those challenging days come, I need a Albert Brownlee, I need a Carolyn Bell, my mom, I need a Yolanda Walker, and everybody plays a different role. So for me, Yolanda is probably going to always play behind the scenes. She has no interest in people knowing things that she does for me in order for me to shine. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And part of that is because she's family and she knows the generational curses of us. Then we both silently suffering in some areas that we wrestle and try to push and propel. But it's a different arena when you have people that you can interlock your arms with and say, listen, we may not have come from the same family, but we have some struggles and we're willing to pray, fight, press, and pull for you to reach your greatness. What people are witnessing now is a few people that have been behind me, not a few, a lot. I have to be honest. A lot of people who have stood behind me in the trenches and wanting my success. I have a young lady, a lady named Picola, who's one of my mentors, and Elaine Presley, Pastor Peyton, who saw where I am right now before I did. I didn't see my gift. And they were people who were like, listen. When my pastor say daughter, Doc, he called me Doc, daughter.
Is that Pastor Peyton?
You got to do this. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's the man.
So when he says that, there's something that rises in me like, okay, if he believed, you know what I mean? And it's the same way with Picola. She bought me I wish I could show you, a dream box when I got the job for Director of Programs at Fort Wayne Housing Authority. And she had a candle in there. She has a journal. And she had some nutritional snacks. And let me tell you something. One of the most powerful gifts, probably didn't cost her $10. But listen, that thing spoke to me. Because she said for me to write down, how I got here, how I'm going to move, what God has blessed me forward. Like the candle to give you light and vision, blah, 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 blah. See, sometimes people give you gifts of purpose and it ain't cost them nothing. Somebody else can come in with a $300 gift, but that gift was purposed.
Yep.
She said, and eat healthy, because for you to move the needle forward, you're going to have to do self-care.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
You got to survive the journey.
Man.
Your vessel has to carry you through this. Yeah.
She says, so shame on you. Don't do all this work for the world and you ain't even able to be well, And so those are the kind of things that I think we have to encounter and have people around us with those spirits and who don't have the issue of your light shining bright, of you obtaining more financial success than maybe they experience.
Yeah.
And I think being and doing that for others, I tell people I pay. There was a season in my life where my staff made triple than what I made. And people were like, what? You in charge? Huh? How? But it's a humbling experience. because I still had to lead in love and do the work, and create the vision for the space. And so that's why I always use the quote. People a lot of times are jealous of my success that's wrapped in struggle and sacrifice. They don't understand that in 1 year, one time in the last few years, I made 10,000 that year. I have no idea how I made it. Well, I do now. It had to be God.
Right.
10,000. What? That was the Okay, God. So again, but people only saw that I'm still on Facebook. I'm still doing the work with Girls Rock Happy.
Yeah.
Still eating. They only saw that. They didn't see where you spreading bills out and saying, okay, Lord, which one I'm picking? And praying to God saying, okay, now I'm going to call this one and tell them. And it worked out.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is all. You giving me chills. You giving me chills.
I mean, to whom much is given, much is required.
Amen.
And
that's right.
A lot of times we want the given, but we don't want to look at the requirements for the job.
Mm-hmm.
See, some requirements for the job that sometimes if folks knew the real requirements, they wouldn't even apply. They wouldn't even be saying to us, oh, I would be her. You would not.
You would not.
That's across the board. In great marriages, one of my mentors, we love her and her husband. She said, y'all love him now. Y'all don't know the requirements of what it took to get him to who he is now. So women do that all the time. They'll tell another, your husband's no, your husband can be too. But you're going to have to endure and not endure, but love him the way that I've had to love, endure a little bit, sacrifice a little bit. Those are things that we don't understand. There's requirements to be married 50 years. Folks who make it to 50 and 30 years of marriage, they got some stories.
Mm.
They ain't told it. It may not even be worn on their sleeve, but they got some stories to tell that made it to that place. So if that's the generational curse you want to break, sit at the foot of some of them folks.
Sit at the foot.
Hear their truth. Hear their truth. Those are the things that, you want to be able to do so that you can understand success and its sacrifice for it.
Yeah. Wow. Oh man. Breaking cycles. That is, it's possible and it's doable. And I'm truly blessed to have the desire. I don't even think some people see it. And that is the biggest, not frustration, but that's really baffling to me sometimes. I'm like, this is a pattern, y'all. Like, this is not good. And some people just don't, they don't see it.
More than frustration, it's fear, because you don't want, it's like, man, I want you to experience this greatness. I tell students all the time, success, there's a feeling that comes. I can't explain it. I remember graduating high school with 2 kids, and there was something in my stomach. I didn't get to walk commencement because I had a child that year. And so June 3rd was graduation. June 1st, my child was born. So the commencement ceremony, I didn't get to do. And I remember being so sad about it, but there was something about having that struggle and making it that in my stomach, I desired the next level. So then I took a few years and got an associate's degree. And that was my first graduation walk at Ivy Tech. Never forget it. And then, going to IPFW, and that was an 8-year journey for a 4-year undergrad. But there was something about my stomach that I hungered because of all the 2 successes I had prior to that. And got that bachelor's degree and did that going through a divorce. I got pink slipped from Fort Wayne Community Schools on a Wednesday and divorce papers on a Friday in the same week. I never forget it that year. But again, there was something about success that then I said, I got the audacity to do a master's degree. And listen, I tell people, I ain't the smartest. I work hard for a B. And an A, I done it. Like, I done had a tutor. I done had,
Yeah.
something about this feeling of success that kept propelling me and pushing me that I could do it. And so I obtained a master's degree after my whole house burned down and a job loss, you know? And so, but there was something that kept pushing me, you know? And so I tell students and people all the time, to experience success is one of the greatest things, especially when you put in the work.
Yeah.
It given to you, you've had to endure, you got a story behind it. And that's what will lead you to understand that it's not about you. See, all of those pieces and journeys, it wasn't about me. It was about all the onlookers. Everybody who was on the side, and they may never say anything to you. They may never tell you how you've enlightened and inspired them, but it helps their generational curses become doable. It gives them understanding like, man, she grew up where I grew up. Oh my God. I remember her when she went through the divorce and we worked together and she was crying. I remember when she lost everything, all her clothes, everything in her house. And she still was going to school, doing her work on the computer at work at Indiana Tech till 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, on Saturdays. What? I remember her. And so we have to learn that a lot of times, again, it's generational. Break down the word. You are showing the next generation how they can break down their curse.
Oh, man.
How you do it, how you daily move and push and propel things out the way. And if you do it in love, you know it's God. When you can go through some of the things that you can name off with yourself, and you like, I mean, literally, when I lost my house in 2015, I said, okay, God, you really playing. Like, I don't have nothing. I don't even have a pair of underclothes to put on tomorrow. I don't have anything, you know, my glasses. I mean, just basic common stuff. I don't got nothing. And a friend who I had been really mentoring, her daughter, came to my aid and brought me a Walmart bag on the street in front of my house. Went to Walmart, got underclothes, a long dress, you know, those summer dresses we wear. It was in the summer. Forget it. And in the middle of the street, I'm just watching my whole life of 20-some years go to the ground. And I then learned it was purposed. Never thought I could build a home. Didn't think that was I'm like, I don't make that kind of money. God said, you're going to be able to choose the layout of your home. What somebody thought was left for broken, going to be built up. You're going to show on southeast side of Fort Wayne what can be, the beauty of it. When you do things the way I designed you to do, when you endure for the people, when you still serve girls and you yourself struggling. When, you know,
standing
when they
in
don't
the gap.
That you saving some people's daughters to go to college and your own nieces and your own family won't take the advice that you're giving and move and propel forward. See, and that's a struggle for me because my generation, I wanted to be within my family a lot of times. Lord, I want y'all to get it. I don't want y'all to suffer or struggle. But he said in their time, keep doing the work, keep leading in love. I said, Lord, it's unfair. Why my sons, they didn't go to college right away. Why I didn't send other boys and help them and gone to their games at Notre Dame and other places. Why my sons? He said, that's not their call. They're good young men. They work, they love their wives, they good to their family, and they raising strong daughters. Who said that they got to go to Notre Dame like somebody else? I didn't say that. That's not their assignment. See, we'll get caught up in that. You know, he said, but they fought off being teen parents. They fought off being addicted. That's in your bloodline. They fought off some of the things they done fought off. They winning, and you don't even see it. You know, and so sometimes, you know, we got to understand when our lane is different, and the generational curse that they breaking is understanding their finances better. You know, my sons get it. You know,
gonna set their kids up too.
Yeah, you know, understanding that that they need to love the woman that God has given them, to not be a cheater, to not you know, do some of the things that they have seen before them. Don't do that. be a man of value and of love and of purpose. They breaking the curse right there. So sometimes we got to understand, what has already been a blessing, what they've already fought off, and those kind of things.
Wow. Ooh, you giving a whole sermon on here. Oh, you got me thinking all kinds of stuff. Just there are so many synchronicities in what you're saying and what I myself have experienced and am experiencing. And so it is so refreshing to hear you say some of this, because I experience being pushed off of ledges sometimes. I feel like, God will push you off of a ledge because there's nowhere left for you to stand over here. There's just nowhere left. So you're not going to take the steps. I'm going to push you. Like, you never would have built that house if your house didn't burn down. So he pushed you right up out of your comfort zone.
And it was so weird because I had so many memories still of my past relationship. I was hanging on to all these visuals. So how you going to be open to a new marriage? How you going to be open to a new relationship, new friendship? You still got all this stuff on your walls of the past. Yeah. And so, I think about sometimes him saying, like, I had to burn it. I had to take it all.
I wouldn't have let it go if I didn't.
I needed you to see yourself, and part of what I learned is that my sons are my greatest gifts that came from the relationship, but I never would have been able to create Girls Rock staying married. Never would that have birthed. Never. Not because he was a bad person. Me, I wouldn't have seen myself.
Right.
And so sometimes God removes because he needs you to see who he designed you to be. You don't have to stay stuck in what you deemed as your mistake. Because I remember my oldest son, I apologized to him at one point because I remember when people would ask me things, my first pregnant, it was a mistake, my greatest mistake and I said, Lord, I'm speaking that about my child. And so I apologized and I changed my language about that. Because even though he was young, that registers with a kid.
Yes.
I was mommy's mistake. I ruined her future and blah, blah, blah. No, you were my greatest gift. And that is why I know I teach young girls how to lead with love. Because when you have a child young, that's what you got to do. You have to let go of all of what you had designed, and you have to give the gift of love to a child. And you still a child yourself. So there's a shift that has to happen. And so, that was my greatest gift, that taught me how to love beyond myself.
Wow.
Learn sacrifice, and learn to embrace that even though the world may deem it as your greatest mistake, it's going to be your mission. It's going to be your mission work. And loving kids became my mission work, and I'm grateful for it.
Wow. That is so inspiring. You are the all of the stuff. Like, I just didn't even. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing so many things. My mind is racing, thinking about just experiences I've had just in the last year of feeling, of having moments where I'm just like, listen, God, I don't have anything left. So if you want this to happen, you're going to have to figure it out. Because I've walked as far as I can see. And if I'm supposed to go farther, I need you to figure this out, because I don't know. I don't have no more chips. I don't know what else to do. I don't know. And sure enough, something always opened up.
And a lot of times he's saying, thank God. Oh, you ready for me now? Oh, you done doing it on your own? Go sit down somewhere. Rest while I show you what I had planned for you. But you refused to listen at that time.
Yeah. So I'm learning that, even going through this journal, because I absolutely want to break as many cycles in my time as possible. And, that's why I created this podcast, because when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, this didn't exist. And I needed this when I was on and off of buses and trains and walking to and from work and stuff. I needed this. I didn't really need that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love music and stuff like that. But if
Yeah.
I had some place where I could listen to people who had gone before me talk about what they're doing and how they're getting through things, how the mindsets, the self development that you do in order to get there, I believe it would have changed, just my entire trajectory. And I'm thankful for where I'm at because now I realize that I can do that for someone else. And that's
Yeah.
why, Empower You podcast is so special to me because I truly believe that we are paving the path for the future. That's why I've created the podcast, the Empower You podcast brand. That's why I teach people how to build their platforms with podcasts because statistically, they build better brands, they build more engagement, they build truer followings, they build, so everything that I'm doing is all about combating and wrestling that fear of having access to the information or the people. Like I didn't have mentors growing up, and then here I am at 30 years old with almost 50 fantastic episodes with inspiring people that I get to interact with first and create this lane for other people to go behind and listen to. You don't have to do anything. This is free. I don't charge for anything. You know what I mean? So
Well,
it's just
people,
amazing. And stories like yours especially, are inspiring. When you said you were standing there watching your house burn down, I felt that. I have felt like my entire life was burning down. Like you just feel completely distraught and are looking, and just like you said, it's just like, are you ready for me now? Are you ready for this? You've exhausted yourself, you've done everything you can do, and it's not enough. So are you ready, to really lean in? You know what I'm saying?
and Jada Pinkett Smith said it best. She said, "You need the adversity to come into your wisdom."
Mm.
It's all the adversity is what has birthed the wisdom that sits before you. That moment of sitting outside of my house, that moment of sitting in divorce court, that moment of, job loss, that moment of, all of those things, the adversity. But they also created the moment of a beautiful wedding that I'll never forget that I've experienced, the moment of love that I experienced in my marriage, the moment of the birth of my children, you know what I mean? And almost dying on the table with one of my kids, just all of those things that can be a thorn, but also offer beauty, the end results, the divorce that then created a best friend friendship that I know I'll have for a lifetime with my ex-husband. Most people can't be in parties or do and plan things for their grandkids and kids together, but we now have that. And so I think that, we make things that are abnormal normal.
Yeah.
When you let go of fear, when you can break generational curses of marriages failing and everybody mad at each other every time they encounter each other, the lies you tell, we're not going to have that. We're going to have where our granddaughter is sometimes confused. Like, y'all friends. Absolutely. Your pawpaw is awesome, And so we have to normalize, even when we've had some brokenness, that we can still build together for the greater good of our legacy.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. That our younger family members and people behind us can witness healthy relationships. And if it has to change, healthy friendship.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that will then be your trunk, and your root of generations to come, and making it common that we talk about finances and investing in money beyond our right now. So don't take your stimulus check and go buy clothes. No, put some money up, invest some of that money, put some money up for your kids and their children's children. And so that's why it's imperative that, you are around people who understand how to, to build generational wealth, so that generational issues can change and transition. Because sometimes it's finances.
Yeah.
But we only know generational poverty. we don't know how to have access at tables that create generational wealth.
Wow. That's deep.
Really life-changing. That's where life can change, when your kids can experience taking a vacation outside of Indiana. When your kids can experience not just going through a McDonald's line, but going to sit down at Baker Street and have dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And have a different experience. For some, that's not a lot, but for some, that's major. And so those are things that in Girls Rock we do. We give them experiences of life beyond the Ronald McDonald line, and defining healthy eating and food behind all of that. What does it mean? We just they do these busted challenges. I told them we ain't gonna do no busted challenge. We doing a water challenge. And so I said, our water challenge is we looking at our body weight and figuring out how much water we need to be drinking so that we can be healthier. Yeah. So that's something we started over 30 or 60 days ago, and our girls are learning those things and see their skin is changing and that their bodies can change. And so, sometimes your own individual battle can birth your platform for what you should be speaking and doing with girls. And so it helps keep me accountable as well. I'm sipping water,
Yeah, I got mine.
I didn't used to get up in the morning. I went for the ginger ale. I said, Denita, get some water this morning. I know you've not been feeling well, and I like ginger ale when I don't feel well, but I said, get some water this morning, because a lot of times what we're struggling with physically is because we lacking that water. So just teaching those kind of things to break that generational stuff down is what our kids need to witness and not just hear talked about, but be able to make it tangible for them.
Yeah. Well, listen, I should let you go because I have got you overtime, and I always tell people you need to make sure you're honest about your time with your guests, because if you keep them too long, they will never come back. But I do want to ask you for one thing. I'm going to do a quick ad read for the podcast and for my content creation course, my podcast course. And when I come back, I would love to just get a thought exercise, something we can all work on from this moment forward, and that will help us stay in the mindset of breaking those cycles, those generational curses, and overcoming those things. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and I'll come right back to you. Okay.
All right.
So for any of those listening, again, my name is Kidboy Cooper, and this is Empower You Podcast. I am so glad and happy that you have made it to this point in the episode. This is a truly special podcast where we endeavor to pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. And I want you to join us. So do me a favor, click like, click share, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me that you're enjoying this content, and we will have so much more for you. And if you are out there and you're thinking about starting a podcast and you may be unsure, you got some doubts, there's some foggy areas, let me know. I have an entire suite of products that will help you get really clear about your messaging and save time creating a podcast that truly impacts your perfect listener. Again, that is the Guru Guide to Podcasting, and I am Kidboy Cooper. This is Empower You Podcast, and I am just so thankful for you, and I hope to hear from you really, really soon. Okay? All right. So, Denita?
Yes.
Are you ready for that thought exercise?
What's it called again?
The thought exercise.
The thought exercise?
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that I have created in Girls Rock is a Girls Pledge, and I didn't create it. I had a couple of young ladies who created this pledge for me, but I say this to say that, like, for you, for your family, for yourself, for generations that you are trying to empower, encourage, and equip, create a slogan, a mantra that you can speak to yourself daily. And so when I wake up now, this is something that I say to myself. And where I say girl, you can say man. Where I say, whatever your gender is, you put it in your own gender. And so this is titled A Girl's Pledge. I am a girl of power, poise, and potential. I am greater than my reflection in the mirror. I shall pursue my dreams and develop my ambitions. I shall speak with authority and sit at table with queens or kings. I will not compromise or compare. I will not fear nor be afraid. I shall go and do and exemplify the way for future generations. I am a girl who rocks in my mind. I'm a girl who rocks in my spirit. I am a girl who rocks.
Wow.
This is my daily pledge to myself. And you can be a king or a queen that rocks. So this can fit any gender and any age group. I just want people to understand that they are built here to be a man or a woman that rocks for their next generation, not rocks for their family. And sometimes we are the rock for our family. And so come beyond being the pebble. Pebble has minimal effect, but that rock can create a powerful crack in the issues of life. And so create your pledge, understand it, and walk in it.
Wow. Ooh, a pledge. Recite that in your mirror.
Yes. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really, really appreciate it. It has been a long time coming, and I am just thrilled. I really, really am. We have moved up in the world. You hear me on Empower You Podcast.
I'm excited to have been chosen because I think sometimes, we can overlook and not see people. I see you, and I appreciate you silently doing the work. And so don't worry about you're making noise that's needed, and so I appreciate that. Thank you for being patient with me getting here.
Oh, absolutely.
Great day today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I will talk to you really, really soon. I will have all of this stuff to you, to all of those listening. Thank you for being here. And go to, first, wait a minute. How can people find you? Because people are going to be looking for you after this interview. They're going to want to know exactly how they can interact with Fort Wayne Girls Rock. And if they don't know that you are the Adams Township Trustee, they're going to want to contact you. So what is the best way to contact you and interact with you further and engage with you?
For Girls Rock, it's fwgirlsrock@gmail.com is my email. And I do have a public number, 260-705-7243 is my phone number. I prefer text messages because a lot of times if I see a number and it's not locked in, I'm not going to answer it. So you're going to go to voicemail. And so if you text me and say, hey, I heard the podcast, interested, blah, blah, blah. So I do have a public number. And then I gave the email. And Adams Township, our number is 260-749-4162. Lots of great programming and Zoom sessions that we do on mental health and all kinds of things. And I'm very alive on Facebook. So Fort Wayne Girls Rock is the Girls Rock one. Adams Township, Fort Wayne is the Adams Township page. So please join our pages on Facebook and feel free to give me a call. All
right. You all heard it first. Listen, thank you so much. I cannot wait to send this episode to all of the people because this was great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good one. Keep going.
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely will. You take care. All right.
You do the same. Thank you.
All righty. Bye. Bye-bye. To all of those listening, that was Denita Washington, Executive Director of Fort Wayne Girls Rock, Adams Township Trustee. We are so thankful that she was able to be with us. And for all of those listening, all of those links and her public number will be available. Go ahead and send her a text and tell her how thankful you are that she took some time to be with us on Empower You Podcast. And until I see you guys or speak to you guys again, take care and peace. Empower You Podcast is devoted to bringing real-world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you.